Hey, all right, weirdos. Let's look at some Burroughs books. So we're gonna look at these six stacks of Edgar Rice Burroughs books that come from my collection. This collection started when I was 10 years old. The very first Burroughs book that I got when I was 10 was this right here. This exact book. When I purchased it, it was in about the exact same condition that it is still in right now. I got this at a used bookstore in Coos Bay, Oregon. I think it was a quarter. I don't know why it's not focusing for some reason. It's got a Frank Frazetta cover. Can't freaking see it. Anyway, I was a little kid. And so at this point, when you're a little kid and you get new things to read and you're a little kid like I was, you begin devouring it. And so I think I started reading this as soon as I got in the car and in the hotel room that night. I was reading this and probably read it for the next 3 or 4 or 5 days until I read it all and finished it. So I read this book. Then about a year later, friend of my brother's named Julie. She notices this book, I think, in my room. Or maybe I tell her that of all the books I've read, this is my favorite book. Maybe Julie was visiting and was in my room and she asked me what my favorite book was because I had a lot of books. Even for a 10-year-old probably, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I tell her I like this Son of Tarzan book. It's really good. She says, I have a bunch of Tarzan books. I'll give them to you. So this girl, this friend of my brother's, then gives me about 18 or 19 of the original Tarzan books, and this is one of them. They're from the 60s, the ones that she had. Um, I don't know for sure whether she read all these as a kid and then passed them on to me, or whether these were her father's. I'm pretty sure she was an only child. I don't think she had any siblings. So anyway, Julie gave me those books. She gave me a bunch of Tarzan books. Here's another one of the ones that Julie gave me. And so I started reading Tarzan. Look at that great cover. And it just went on from there. This is another one. She gave me this copy of Son of Tarzan. Interesting cover. So let's start looking through them. And I'll tell you what I can say about each book. This is a good book. So this isn't the version of Monster Man that I read. I read the one from the 80s. It's probably in here somewhere. But this is an excellent book. I recommend it. Another great one from the Pellucidar series, David Innes. So maybe you're thinking, you're saying to yourself, Meyer, Edgar Rice Burroughs, all these books, isn't this guy like the Louis L'Amour of science fiction, right? I mean, isn't this just formulaic stuff? Tarzan, really? Come on, man. Over and over again, it's the same thing, right? Um, in a way, it kind of is. But it never bothered me because I love it so much. there's there's a running thread that I would say that exists here in these books. And that running thread that exists is that the writer himself, Edgar Rice Burroughs, often portrays himself in the foreword or the first chapter of each book as an adventurer himself. And the backstory and the explanation to the fantastic tale which you are about to read, it was communicated to him in a mysterious dispatch, or a drunken peasant related to him in the after hours of a Madagascar pub, or maybe it was a ghost taking over his typewriter, at his house in Hawaii where he lived. He loved Hawaii after success later in life. But he had great success in the middle of his life with Tarzan, and his ranch itself, named after Tarzan, the ranch of Tarzana, so successful that it's like a city. People live there, and most of them don't even know who Tarzan is anymore. or Edgar Rice Burroughs is. Don't even know that the city that they live in was once a ranch owned by this great man. So these are some imports. So I used to buy a lot of these. So a lot of these books came in from my high school years growing up on the Monterey Peninsula. A lot of these came from the Three Rings bookstore on Fisherman's Wharf in Monterey. And then also a lot of them came from the Thunderbird bookstore in Carmel. And I used to read these all through high school. I loved these. They're great. And these are some imports, some British imports that I used to get in Carmel. Wow, so we got complete and total trouble with this. I was just going to say, I was just going to stop this video, you guys. I was just going to just stop it and just say this is messed up. I don't know what's going on with our focus. And I don't know how bad everything has been so far in this video. Another one of those imports. There's a picture of the man himself. He served in World War II in some sort of a can't remember, like a media correspondence type as a writer. I think he was, I think he served as a writer in the Second World War. Look, he passed away in 1950. Only 75 years old. Very young. So he would in a way refer to himself, not necessarily by name, but he would refer to himself in the telling of these stories at the beginning. And the part that he would play is that he was relaying a story to us, the reader. He was telling us, the reader, that he had been informed of this fantastic tale and that he had the privilege of being able to write it down for us, and that he was going to tell us the secrets of this amazing tale. This really appealed to me as a kid. Also appealing to me as a kid was Tarzan himself, the ultimate orphan. So, as well as maybe the first superhero. I'm often wrong about things, so I could be wrong about a lot of what I'm going to be telling you guys, but in my opinion, Tarzan is the first superhero, and he's like, so there was this stereotype or this archetype of heroic orphans that existed for us in canon as children growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s, 90s, I don't know, but it's all about being an orphan, isn't it? Like Mowgli is an orphan, Batman is an orphan, Oliver Twist is an orphan. So many of the heroes are orphans, right? Well, Tarzan was like the ultimate orphan. He was just a badass. So part of me, I was more than half an orphan as a kid, I would say. And part of me wanted to be a full orphan in a way. I wanted to run away and be on my own from a very early age. One of my favorite things about Disneyland as a kid was I loved Tom Sawyer. I loved Tom Sawyer's Island. I bet it's this background with all this stuff. It's why it keeps screwing up, man. It's pissing me off, you guys. I'm not in the mood for it today. It's going to put me over. It'll really tick me off. It'll make me I'll just be like, I'll rage quit the video. So yeah, I loved Disneyland. We went to Disneyland a lot when I was a kid. And the thing I liked about Disneyland was Tom Sawyer's Island. Tom Sawyer's Island to me was it was a tempting fantasy. It was this tempting fantasy of the idea that I could live on my own on an island and everyone would forget about me. So I wanted to, giving away the idea for one of my favorite screenplays, but it's never, they would never make this movie because of the liabilities. But my fantasy as a kid was always to hide away in Disneyland. My fantasy was to jump off the boat in Pirates of the Caribbean and slip behind the scenes and slip in with the animatronics and go underground and get forgotten and live in Disneyland. But before that one, before thinking about pirates, the main thing that I wanted to do was to to take off on Tom Sawyer's Island and to hide in the woods and in the cave, and then hope that my mother and my family would forget about me and that they would just take off and leave me there. That's what I wanted to do. So Tarzan was the ultimate person who did that, who succeeded at being an orphan. He was a total badass. Reading these books from an early age, like I said, I started 10, 11, 12. I started reading these like voraciously. It was all I was reading. Here's the first Tarzan that I read because Julie didn't give me the first book. I bought this later. When I was about 12, maybe I bought this. So it definitely increased my vocabulary and knowledge about everything. But the violence, the descriptions of the violence, the action. I always loved this cover because it reminded me of the TV show or a movie or something. The action, the violence, it was amazing to me as a kid. I had never read anything like it, and I just wanted to keep reading more. And so I just wanted more and more and more. So it was kind of like it's kind of like, it's formulaic, right? There's similarities between all of them. Some of the books he wrote were like this book, The Mad King, where he did this adventure stuff that's kind of like this international adventure flavor type thing, like Prisoner of Zenda or The Man in the Iron Mask. I always loved this cover right here. I always pronounce this Lalana of Gathal. And I hope that this is focusing. I can't stand when it doesn't work very well like this, and the sound or the focus, or I screw something up, the lighting. I think I've read everything here, you guys. We're looking through, and it's beyond the point of saying this is a great book, this is a great cover, because I think all the books are great, and I think all the covers are great. There we go. This is a period when Neil Adams was doing these covers in the 80s. Some John Carter. I'm going to get a new camera soon, a new phone, I think. Things will improve in every way. I remember liking this book a lot, Beyond the Farthest Star. It'd be great if it would focus. So yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so I love the violence. Something about the charm of it all. Like I was saying about him injecting himself somehow into it. The idea that this is supposedly a true story. That goofy thought, that he's trying to pretend that this is all real. Even the Tarzan stuff, he will tell you that the story was told to him by someone else, in a bar in Algiers or something, typically like that. Look at how great these covers are. Yeah, so Julie gave me all this, not all this, a lot of these Tarzan books. Like these early, all of the ones of this era came from Julie. And yeah. I don't know, did I say that? I'm not even sure if she read them all. I can't remember. I can't remember whether she was I don't remember. I mean, well, obviously she gave them to me. So she parted with them. So, I mean, I would never part with these. I would never part with these. So it was very nice of her to give me, I love this cover. It was very nice of her and thoughtful of her to give me these books. But she couldn't have been as big of a Tarzan fan as I was if she was willing to get rid of them and give them away. So maybe they were a gift to her. Maybe they had been her father's. It's possible that her dad would have read these. I only met her dad a couple times. Her parents were nice. I met them. Her mother was very sweet. Where do they live? I want to say Sunnyvale, Morgan Hill, someplace like that. Someplace around San Jose. Great people. Pirates of Venus. One time I made a trade with Julie that my sister told me it was a bad trade. So Julie wanted my Tommy the Who movie soundtrack double album. She wanted that. And so she offered a trade for me. She offered to trade me the Leonard Skinner double album, the live double album. I think it's called One More for the Road. It's an excellent album. And I was more than willing to make that trade because there was multiple copies of that record, the Tommy the Who soundtrack, at my house. So we went and saw that movie as a family. Who takes their family and their little kids? Who takes a little? I mean, I was the only one little, but who takes a little kid to go see Tommy the Who? Tommy by the Who. With I Aretha Franklin. Is that who that was? Who, or Tina Turner, like as the Acid Queen, and Uncle Ernie. It was just creepy, but it was supposed to be. It was like that was supposed to be the hip, cool thing to do. Was that everybody had to see what the new movies were, or whatever. So my mom was like always doing stuff like, if something was happened together as a family, or we all. Oh, here's that book I was talking about the other day. Or we all liked or saw something or experienced something together. She would buy us all the same thing. So I think one Christmas, everybody got a copy of the soundtrack to Tommy by the Who, the movie soundtrack. So I traded it to Julie, and my sister told me it was a bad deal. But here's the funny part of that, and the end of this story, and the end of this video, is that one of the things that my mother did, a gift that she bought for everybody one Christmas, and it would have been the Christmas of '77, is she bought all of us, me and my 3 siblings, we all got an early bird packet for the Star Wars action figures. But I was the only one of everyone who was actually a child and actually liked action figures and was actually into this whole thing, right? So we all get the early bird packet. Apparently, everybody gets their figures, but nobody but me opens them. Everybody else keeps their boxes. And I open that white box and take out those 4 figures and play with them and destroy them, discard them, don't take care of them. Because I was already kind of aging out of toys at this time anyway. I was like 12 or 13 at this point. And then just a year or two past that, those figures, they were gone. Like they were consumed by the garage or the yard or the neighbors or my cousins. And I didn't care about them. I didn't care about the loss. I was interested in way more things, more important things than Star Wars figures. So anyway, to finish the story and finish the video, in 1994 or 1995 or whenever those prequels, or 96 or 98, whenever Phantom Menace came out, all of a sudden, all 3 of my siblings, I don't know whether they saw a news story or what gave them the idea. At this point, I think eBay and the internet are fairly new. They all feel that this is the time to unload their original 4 figures, still in the packages, in the white box, still in the plastic from the early bird envelope, and they all sell their figures for between $500 and $750, I think. I think my sister told me she sold her figures for $750. So that's what happens when you give this stuff to people that don't know what to do with it, like Julie. She did the right thing. She passed these books on to someone who she found out that I loved Tarzan, and she's like, I know something. I have all these Tarzan books, and so you can have them. Here, take these Tarzan books. But my siblings, they think that they need to turn their action figures for a quick buck. They think that the benefit of having my mother give them a gift on Christmas is not to enjoy the gift or not to keep the gift as a lifelong remembrance, but instead to turn it over for a quick buck. And boy, was it a quick buck, because none of them have ever wanted for money in their entire lives. And if they had just hung on to those figures, I think that set is about 10 grand right now, you guys. I think it is. I really think it's about 10 grand unopened like theirs was. And they sold it for $750 like 20 years ago. That's the moral of the story. Don't be a freaking idiot. And instead, hang on to shit, especially shit that you can tell and know that is going to be valuable. And if it doesn't have any worth to you, give it to somebody. Give it to somebody who will love it and take care of it and knows what to do with it. And will never sell it, but instead will keep it as a legacy and a keepsake for forever, for their family and friends and their community, for the betterment of the community, instead of turning around and selling it for a quick buck. Scumbags. Hope you enjoyed this video, looking at all these awesome Edgar Rice Burroughs books. Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Louis L'Amour of science fiction fantasy, right? Okay, thanks for watching. Talk to you later.